In this video, we will discuss about Palo Alto Firewall security zones. Keep in mind, Palo Alto Firewall zone feature is similar like a Cisco zone-based firewall. If you remember in old days, iOS router, we used to make them as a zone-based firewall. We create zone in that Cisco iOS router to make them a firewall, to work like a firewall, and we used to call them zone-based firewall. And those zone protect the network. Then you need to create a policy to allow the traffic from one zone to another. The similar concept apply to Palo Alto Firewall. So Palo Alto Firewall, if you say it is a zone-based firewall. Because without zone, you cannot create security policies. I will show you. So it means these security zones are logical way to group physical or virtual interfaces. And why we need these security zone? We use them to control and log the traffic whenever they cross a specific interfaces. So it means interfaces on Palo Alto Firewall must be assigned to security zone before that interface process any traffic. So those interfaces are useless without assigned to security zones. So if we go to Palo Alto Firewall and go to network, and here we created previously zones. These zones are very important. So we have a DMZ zone, it's just a name. Okay, and these interfaces belong to these zone. Then we can use these interfaces in our policies, because in the policy you cannot call directly the interfaces, but you call only zones such as LAN to DMZ. So here you can see we just call the zones, not the interfaces. So it means those interfaces are useless without assign them to a zone. So it means we need to create zones, and these zones are basically for division purpose, to segment your network. The more you have a zone, the more you protection. Because such as for data center server, you have a different zone. For LAN, you have a different zone. Maybe you have another database servers, or maybe web server, you can create a separate zone for that. So whenever somebody try to access those zones, then you need to create a policies here, because these policies are based on the zone, not on the interfaces. So those interfaces will and must be assigned to security zone before they can process any traffic. And also zone can have multiple interfaces, but these interfaces has to be the same type. What does it mean? So if I go to network again and go to zone, so here in DMZ, the type of this zone is layer 3. There can be layer 3 tape, virtual wire, layer 2 tunnel. So if I make them layer 2, so those interfaces are disappear, because those interfaces are not the same type. So the type of your zone, so the same interfaces will be the same type. If I have a layer 2 interface, can I add that one? No, because type of this zone is layer 3. So I can only add layer 3 type of interfaces. Second, keep in mind that we can interface belong to only one zone, but zone may have different interfaces, many interfaces, multiple interfaces, such as in this case. So if I go to DMZ, this DMZ has 3 interfaces. However, I can only put this 1/4 interface only in one zone. So 1/4 can belong to only one zone, which is DMZ. I cannot put this 1/4 to LAN WAN 1 or WAN 2. If I move them, so it will be moved totally. So you cannot assign the interfaces multiple zone. but zone can have multiple interfaces. And keep in mind, the zone name has no predefined meaning or any policy association with this one. These are just the name, whatever you can give them, so that can distinguish and easy to understand. So in this case, I say DMZ because we have a DMZ server, and I say LAN, so I have a LAN. I can give them inside as well. And we have WAN1 and WAN2, ISP1 and ISP2, and you can create as many zone you want. Just click here. You just require name of the zone, log setting if you want to enable, type of the zone. It can be tab zone, virtual wire, layer 2, layer 3 or tunnel. And the interfaces belong to this zone. Okay. And if you want to protect this zone, so we have a zone protection profile. We have a buffer protection profile to enable based on this zone. Then we can enable user identification on this zone, and we can include and exclude subnets or range or IPs. And this is device ID ACL. We can enable device identification, and also the same thing, include and exclude ranges. So this is all about the zone which you can create. It doesn't mean that you can only create zone from here. You can create through CLI as well. You can delete them, and you can export these zone detail to Excel file. Also on the spot, if you go to any interface, suppose, okay, and when you click to put them in a zone, so these are the which we create already. If you want to create, so you just click here as well. So it will take you there, the same place, to create a zone on the spot as well. Okay, so these are the zone for division purpose. And as I say, security policies are applied to zone, not to the interfaces. So that's why this is the first thing you need to create a zone. And when we create a policy, so we say, okay, from where the traffic will come and where it will go. So within the zone, all the traffic are allowed. But between the zone, we need to define security policy. So if I go to policies, so here we have LAN to DMZ. These are different zone. So we need to define a policy to allow the traffic based on the address, based on the user, based on device, based on many things, based on application services. However, in the same zone, all the traffic are allowed automatically, because here we have intra-zone default. And if I go at the end, so there is allowed. So within the zone, all the traffic is allowed. And between the zone, we need to create a policy to allow the traffic. And that's why we create a zone, so that we can protect our network in segments. And I already told you, when you want to create a zone, you just name of the zone. You need type of the zone and which interface belong to this zone. So I already show you that one. So if I go to network and I go to zone, so these are the three basic thing require: name, type of the zone, and interfaces belong to this zone. Okay, so we have a DMZ, we have a guest, we have a user, we have data center, we have internet, and it can be multiple internet, it can be DMZ, and maybe we have a database and we have a data. So for this purpose, to divide them, so within this zone, users can reach to each other freely. It doesn't require any policies. However, if user want to reach to guest, they require a firewall policy to allow the traffic from user zone to guest zone based on many criteria. If user want to reach to DMZ, so what we done? We divide this firewall in segments. We have a DMZ, we have a guest, we have a user, we have a data center, we have internet. So in this way, we can protect our network in segments. So that's why we require to create a zones. And then I show you all the thing. And from where we can create a zone, I told you, and which three basic stuff is required to create a zone. Name, type of the zone, it can be virtual wire, layer 2, layer 3, external or tunnel. Interface, which interface belong to this zone. You can enable zone protection profile. You can enable buffer protection profile. You can log setting to forward zone protection logs, enable user identification, and you can include and exclude. Similarly, ID identification, device ID and user ID, and exclude and include. So these things can be applied based on this zone. And why we need zone, I already explained you. So I hope so you understand.